Hello, Sean Thompson here, spiritual counselor and psychic medium, owner of Inner Healing. I have an exciting topic that I want to talk about today, and that is prayer versus meditation. And oftentimes people use both interchangeably, but they do have, although they have similarities, they do have some differences. We're going to go over the similarities, the differences today. We're going to talk about why you would use prayer and meditation and how it can really infuse the mind-body connection and take your practice to the next level. So I have been a licensed counselor, a spiritual counselor, a psychic medium for over 20 years. A lot of y'all know I was raised Catholic. As I moved into more of my religious practice and being raised Catholic, I realized that I wanted to go a lot deeper. And so I started exploring with my spirituality and meditation and really found that it provided me more of that mind-body-spirit connection that I was looking for. So let's jump right in and let's talk about why someone may want to use prayer or meditation in their daily practice. So if you have any questions, also put them in the chat box, and if I see them as I'm talking, I will certainly answer them. If not, I will definitely answer them after this live feed. So some of the reasons why you may invoke prayer or sit or establish a meditative practice as it relates to the body is it can bring great benefits. It can help reduce stress, depression, fear, and anxiety, and it can really help you learn how to control those aspects of your mind-body connection when you get into fear, stress, or worry, and teach you how to control your breathing, how to reduce your heart rate, how to reduce that anxiety. So there are definitely some benefits to the body connection as it relates to prayer and meditation. It also invokes a pure sense of peace and comfort and relaxation. Mostly the meditative aspect will do that, but of course, whenever you're connecting with your higher source or God, you feel a lot more peaceful and comforted by just being able to ask for assistance outside of yourself to something that's connected to all that is. Other things that meditation and prayer can help you with is to gain insight and wisdom into life's challenges. A lot of times we seek answers outside of ourselves, but if we really knew the truth, when we are connected to our higher self and our God source, we are connected to all the answers and they come from within. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. Yes, so Rebecca says her blood pressure is lowered after meditation. That's actually a proven fact. There have been a lot of studies that show blood pressure goes down, heart rate goes down, stress and anxiety go down, and you get a sense of peace and calmness that comes over you. They've done studies for that, so thank you for sharing. Another reason why you would want to use prayer and meditation in your active daily practice is if you're looking to connect with your loved ones, with your guides, with the angelic realm. It actually allows you direct access to receive insight, wisdom, messages, and a connection with them. So if you've lost a loved one, like many of you have, you will definitely want to try to establish a regular practice of prayer meditation because it does give you direct access to them. What you're connecting with is the spiritual realm, which is where they're at. And so the more you practice that, the deeper, the stronger connection that you'll have. It improves the mind-body-spirit connection altogether. So it doesn't just help the body, it doesn't just help the mind, it doesn't just help you commune with spirit. It actually brings the three together and joins you as opposed to separating you from all the wisdom that's available to you. So I just love that connection it provides. It also increases your intuition. It allows you direct access to all the wisdom and knowledge within you. And those intuitive hits just come rapidly the more that you sit in meditation, the more you ask for guidance and support in prayer. So if you're wanting to work on opening up your spiritual gifts and your intuition, meditation and prayer, a combination of both definitely helps with that. Rebecca wants to know, is the veil really thinner at this time of year? Absolutely. I think I just did a post about Halloween, and especially the holiday season, because you're bringing in your loved ones who are dear to your heart who have passed. The Day of the Dead, which is around Halloween, October 31st, is when the veil is thinner, and it's kind of like the deceased just celebrate and honor their passing into the spiritual realm where their soul continues to exist. So the veil thins and you have more ghostly experiences. You have the ability to connect across the veil. A lot of mediumship sessions are scheduled around this time, not only because you're thinking of your loved ones and you're missing them, but because the veil is thinner. So thank you for asking that question. It also deepens your connection with God and your higher self. When you're sitting in prayer and meditation, you're getting quiet and you're communing with an entity within yourself and outside of yourself that is so much bigger and has so much more unconditional love and wisdom, and is from, quote, home, where you resonate with, where you come from, and that need to connect with it really intensifies your communion with your higher self. So I love that prayer and meditation both offer that. Another thing that it does is it lightens up your divine path and really clears the way to help you see what decisions would be best for your higher self, what direction you want to go, the divine plan, and that everything's in order. So if you're really struggling, prayer and meditation can offer you some insight and really light the way for your path. It really gives you a sense of you're not alone in the direction that you're going, or if you need help figuring out a direction. Rebecca says, I've already started my spiritual journey. I feel and see many things. Absolutely. So whether you're just in the beginning, whether you're having a spiritual awakening, whether you've had a spiritual awakening, whether you were raised religiously or spiritually, or you're just now getting into learning how to connect with the abundance of love on the other side, you will start to open up and have more synchronicities, more insights, more intuitive hits than you could ever imagine. Because remember, we're spiritual beings first before we're human. We're having a human experience where the ego is kind of plugged in and it thickens the veil, if you will, because the true test of the soul is to come back to your spiritual self so that everything you do, think, feel, and act comes from your highest evolved self and it comes from unconditional love. The ego is there to test you. It's there to protect you. It's a good thing, but it can get out of control. But when you start your spiritual journey and you connect with your divine self, you will see that what guides you is no longer your ego. It's actually your spirit. And that's where all the wisdom comes in. So those are some of the reasons why you might entertain the thought of prayer and meditation. I really want to dive into the differences between the two, because although both of them are related, a lot of people have the mindset that prayer is associated more with a religious practice and meditation is associated more with a spiritual practice. And that's not necessarily true. They're actually both used in religious and spiritual practices. However, they have two different goals that separate them. So when you look at the definition of prayer, prayer is actually a request for help, or you're giving thanks to an entity or an object outside of yourself, such as God or a deity. So when you invoke prayer, you're oftentimes involving a request for help, whether a family member is sick or you're doing confession, you're asking for forgiveness, you're asking for help with some decisions that you have to make, and you're bringing your problem outside of you to a higher being in which you feel separate, who could help you with that decision. Whereas meditation is a spiritual practice that uses techniques that actually help you control your breathing. They use techniques like mantras and focusing on the thought to create a state of awareness and mindfulness and relaxation. And once you get to that space in meditation where you can just sit and be, The goal is to receive the insight and wisdom from your higher self, your divine self, the superconscious, God, and the higher universal consciousness. So the difference is prayer is saying, will you help me with this? Meditation is going within and saying, I'm ready to receive the grace and the insight that is coming from the prayer that you requested, if that makes sense. So let's talk about some of the common similarities that they both have, because even though they're used interchangeably, they are different. But this is some of the reasons why people tend to kind of lump them in the same soup pot. So they both involve an inward contemplative state where you're going within and you're seeking answers. They're both done in a very quiet setting, oftentimes in solitude, even though when you gather at church, you're with a lot of people, or when you participate in a world prayer, or meditation, you're communing with a lot of other people, but typically it's done in solitude. They both provide peace and comfort to the heart and the mind. They're both communing with the higher power, whether you want to call it your higher self, the divine source, the universal consciousness, God, Buddha, Krishna, whatever your belief system is. You are actively communing with a higher source that is related to your spiritual self. And they both involve a ritual. So a lot of times with prayer, you can use tools such as, this is my great-grandmother's rosary. As I said, I was raised Catholic, so I have a lot of Catholics in my family. And this is some mantra prayer beads, and you can see the difference and similarity in both of them. They both use beads to say a mantra or to say a prayer, which eventually invokes that state of relaxation so that you can commune with your higher self. Rebecca says, yes, I love to be in a quiet place while praying and meditating. That is the best and the highest, most sacred place, is to create a quiet place when you're communing. And that way you don't have any distractions, because your mind is going to give you enough distractions. But if you have music going, if you have people walking in and out, if you have your phone on, your TV on, the dog barking, it's really hard to get in that state of being where you can just receive the unconditional love and insight. So yes, you're absolutely right on track, Rebecca. I love that. Another way that ritual is invoked in both of them is when you get in that sacred space, you're really making a date with yourself and your higher source to commune on a deeper level. And you do that both in meditation and in prayer. Some tools are used, like the rosary, the beads, and even crystals, more so in meditation than prayer work, but it really has to do with your belief system. But there are a lot of rituals that go into both that bring that common thread between the two. So Tammy, thank you so much for joining us today. I have a lot to go over. I'm excited. I'm glad that y'all are here. We just went over the common similarities between meditation and prayer, and now I want to go over some of the differences. So there are some main differences, and they're not good and bad differences or would invoke judgment between the two. It's really just differences that they both have coming from a spiritual versus religious perspective. Let's go over some of the differences. One of the first differences is the goal that prayer versus meditation has. So the goal with prayer is to actively request help with something or to give thanks. So it's an active behavior. You're saying, dear God, would you help me with this situation? Would you send love and light to, my neighbor who's dying of cancer? Will you shed some light on this? The goal of meditation is to get to a state of being where you can actually receive the guidance and the insight that your prayer is requesting. So at first, meditation is active because you're wanting to control your breathing, you're wanting to pay attention to your thoughts, you're wanting to get in a relaxed state so that you can receive the insight. Whereas prayer is typically you're talking to God or an entity or an object, and you're asking for help or you're giving thanks. So there's the difference. One's active and one's receptive. Another difference between them is that prayer is where you're talking to guides and your angels, and they're listening to you. They're actually listening to what you need help with. Whereas meditation, you're connecting with God, the universal consciousness, your higher self, is actually talking to you, and you're listening to them. You're receiving. So in prayer, God help me with this, ABC. Meditation, I'm ready to receive the insight and answers to what I prayed about. Okay, so there's the difference. Prayer, they're listening to you. Meditation, you're listening to them. Another difference is that prayer appears to be limited as it relates to your part in it, right? You're asking for help for something outside of you, and it's typically something you don't feel like you have control over, or that you can find the answer to, or that you can fix. So you're asking for help from God or the angels or an entity to help you with something that you don't feel you have control over. So it's kind of puts you in a box of limited helplessness, separation feeling. That's not a bad thing, but it's typically part of prayer, which is not part of meditation. So Trina says, I'm still not able to get my mind to calm down to meditate yet, and I pray for help to be able to. Yes, so prayer is something, please help me learn to meditate. And meditate is receiving the answers of how to get calm and receive additional insight. And I'm going to get into that here shortly, Trina, so hang tight because I'm going to talk about that specifically. But let's get back to some of the differences. So when I was saying prayer, you feel limited, meditation helps you feel limitless. And the reason why is because once you get settled in and you actually connect with your higher self and the universal consciousness, you raise your vibration and frequency to align with all that is. That means everything. A lot of you know that I crossed over to the other side. I learned a lot. I saw a lot. I was everything. I was in the state of unconditional love and vibration where you have access and information to everything. When you're human, you're limited because the veil is thick, induced by the ego. So basically you can mostly use your five senses to see what you see in front of you, right? When you move into a state of meditation, though, you actually move into alignment with your higher self that has access to all the information, so you become limitless. And when you're in a state of meditation, oftentimes you hear big yogis, they can levitate, they can remote view, they can have access to information that your five senses just typically don't. Your ESP or your intuition levels just go up. They even monitor this in the brain state through brain waves. You're accessing a higher vibration and dimension, which is where all the answers are. Versus prayer, you're asking God or the angels to do something for you. In meditation, you're actually going to the direct source where you can do it yourself. So it's kind of like leveling up from prayer, if you will. If you make it a regular practice, you can reach those states. When you're first starting out, Trina, and you're in prayer and you're asking for guidance, what you're struggling with is coming to a calm state of mind where you can actually receive the guidance. And that, given your situation where you lost your son to a very traumatic event, is due to your mind drama that's going on and you feeling desperate in your attempts to connect with him and to maintain that relationship. And so your brain, your ego kicks in. It does a lot of mind chatter, and it doesn't actually allow for you to move in a safe, peaceful, comfortable state to hear him. But until then, I help you with that, and I love doing that. But we want to get you to the state where you can actually do it more often than not on your own, and you will get there. And I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. So another difference between the two of prayer and meditation is prayer is really a short conversation that you have with an entity outside of yourself that keeps your mind active, and it doesn't really have the intention of influencing body parts like your blood pressure, your heart rate, your fear and anxiety. When you're saying prayers to God or to your higher power, you're actively just having a conversation. Whereas meditation actually allows and assists your body into getting into a relaxed state of being where you can have influence and control of the things that your body is doing once you get past the mind chatter. And so meditation actually takes you to another level of being able to induce that mind, body, spirit connection, whereas prayer is more about that spirit connection where your mind is just having a conversation with God. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So the last difference that I just want to hit on is prayer in a religious sense is a private space to connect with your higher power, or to God to give praise. Whereas usually in a spiritual sense, meditation is a sacred space to connect with your soul for that higher wisdom to come through. So I'm not differentiating between positive and negatives versus in relation to religious and spiritual practices. I'm just kind of highlighting the difference where in being raised Catholic, we went to church and, we prayed, we confessed, we said 15 Hail Marys if we did something bad, and then praised God for being a part of our life. Whereas in my spiritual practice and meditation, which I can do at home, I can do on the road, I don't typically go to a church to do that. I can commune with my soul and connect to God, the angels, my loved ones, everybody, anywhere, anytime. Not to say that you can't do that in prayer, but typically when you're praying, it's religious based and you have a ritual or a church that you go to. So, Kristen, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. So those are the differences that I think are pertinent that I wanted to really go over with you in relation to prayer versus meditation. And I want you to realize that prayer and meditation, although they're the same process, if you will, they are different in that I think prayer's a lot easier than meditation. Anybody can do prayer and get it right in a sense where they walk away and they feel like they told God what they needed, right? And that God listened. Children can do prayer. People who have newly found their connection with God can simply have a conversation in prayer, which makes it really easy. Whereas meditation is a practice and it's kind of like a muscle that you have to work at daily to reach a certain state of awareness. Prayer, you just open up shop and say, God, we got to have a talk, okay? And there's no rhyme, rule, or reason. Meditation is a little bit more complicated, but it's still very doable. So let's get into that. When you're talking about prayer, there are some correct things that you want to bring in so that the connection is strong, so that you can feel heard, and so that you really feel that deep connection with your higher power. You always want to include gratitude into your prayer work, into your communication, because it raises your vibration and it expresses appreciation for life. So this one actually goes for both prayer and meditation, is invoking gratitude, so that you're not just asking and wanting and becoming a taker. You're actually saying thank you for helping me, for encouraging me, for giving me strength through hard times. Trina says, I just talked to God like he's sitting with me in the same room. Absolutely. And that's a typical way to speak to God. You don't even have to be in church, but a lot of religious people feel closer to God when they're in church. Similar when your loved one passes. A lot of people feel like going to the cemetery is where you feel closer, but you and I both know that that's not an absolute truth. So another thing you want to add into your prayer work so that you can get that deep connection is after you've said your prayer, always add or something better. May I receive something better, or something for my highest good. Because you never know what life has planned for you. And if in your prayer work you're only asking for XYZ and you don't say or something better or something that's in my highest good, you really limit the possibilities of which you believe can come in for your healing or for your love or support or guidance. Because remember, your higher self and God and the divine plan knows all the potentials that are available to you. And if you limit what you need to only what you can see or think or conceive, you're shorting yourself. So always add the words or better or for my highest good to the end of your prayer so that you can surrender the outcome to a source that knows more and better for you. So another thing that you want to include in your prayer work is to surrender your request and know that it's been heard and that it's being worked on. So I like to use this analogy because I'm totally a foodie, so that you can help understand what I'm saying. When you go out to eat and you're looking at the menu and you place your order to the waitress and she takes it back to the chef to make your food, you don't worry if he's making it right or what ingredients he's using or how long it's going to take him to make it. You just place your order and wait for it to be delivered. When you're saying a prayer, that's what you do. You place your order with God, your higher self, and you say, this is what I need help with. And then you wait. And you have margaritas and chips and salsa with your girlfriend while you're waiting for it to be delivered. That's kind of how prayer works. You deliver what you need help with, and you let God do the rest. So remember that analogy to help you stay calm and peaceful while your prayer is being worked on. Lastly, the practice of prayer is usually done in a time of urgency, or it's done in the evening before you go to bed, and that's fine. You can pray whenever, but those are typically the times that you can get quiet enough to really connect with God, or your higher self, or whatever power you believe in. But you want to work on quieting the mind and becoming present prior to starting. So if you just jump in because an accident just happened and said, God, help Aunt Susie, she just got in a car accident. You can do that. It happens all the time. God will forgive you. But if you can center yourself and really be present so that as you offer your request, you can throw in some gratitude there and know that it's being taken care of and calm yourself. You get the benefits of prayer than just jumping in right at bedtime or in an urgent, dire need. So those are some of the ways that you can correctly pray that will heighten your sense of connection with God and the universal source. So let's talk about how to meditate correctly. Now this one, Trina, is where it might be helpful for you. So a lot of people who are starting out think that the job or the goal of meditation is to make the mind quiet where you're not thinking about anything. And that is absolutely the ultimate goal, because when your mind is quiet, you can receive the insight and guidance that your higher self and that your guides want you to know. However, when you're starting out, it's kind of like going to the gym. You're not going to just start out with the heaviest weights because that's what you read in a book or that's what the ultimate goal is. You're going to start out slow. So when you're starting out meditating, I really encourage people to do an active meditation, which means you're listening to a guided meditation, or you're simply just sitting in gratitude and writing down all the things that you're grateful for. Go wash the dishes. That is a great example of when you want to start learning to meditate, how to just kind of settle in and do something, give your mind something to do or think about while it's learning how to relax. Or do a walking meditation where you just go outside and you pay attention to everything that's around you while you're teaching your body how to relax. That's the first stage of meditation that you cannot skip over, because you have to master it in order to receive the guidance. So when you have your mind active in meditation, you're giving it a job, your body can relax. And once that happens, your mind realizes it doesn't have a job because the job's done, you're relaxed, and it just gets quiet. And what happens is you start to receive insight and wisdom that feels like your mind is talking to you or someone's talking to you. So your mind is never actually like void of thought. It's never actually quiet for a long-term space like what you think when you read the directions on how to meditate. It's always active. It's just a different type of activeness, if that makes sense. Eileen, thank you for being here. It's been a long time since you have been around. I miss your energy. So when you're meditating and when you're just starting off, baby steps, okay? The next thing is make sure that you have patience for yourself while you're learning to meditate. Sometimes in that space in between your thought and your breath, an insight, an intuitive hit, an epiphany might happen. And that's what you wait for. If it doesn't happen in that space, I can almost guarantee you it's going to happen within the next 72 hours, one way or another. It may not be an insight that is inserted into your mind, but it may come through a physical sign, a conversation with someone, a synchronicity that shows up. Your angels and guides and higher self and God have so many ways to deliver the message to you. It doesn't always have to come in the silence during meditation. What meditation does is it allows you to become present and quiet and still so that when the sign shows up, which could be the next day when you're driving or when you're washing dishes, 3 days later, you can acknowledge it and get it and go, oh my God, that was a random thought. And actually that was the answer to my prayer. I got a hit. So it might have not come in the moment of meditation. It may come a little later. So have patience with yourself while you're learning just to be still. The other thing is what you want to involve in meditation is really becoming aware of the insights and epiphanies that do show up. A lot of times in meditation, because it does feel like you're talking to yourself when your guides implant a message or when God's speaking to you or when your higher self is trying to remind you of not to worry, it sounds like your mind is talking to you. Like the voice inside you is yours, but it's really not. If you pay attention, you can sense a different vibration, and it's one of unconditional love and support. Typically, when we're talking to ourselves, our ego chatter has criticism in there, or it has demands or expectations. When you're receiving insight and epiphanies, there's no expectation, there's no judgment, there's no pressure to follow what's being advised or offered. It's just a loving feeling that you receive. So you have to bring your awareness into asking yourself, was this really my ego? Or was this my angel? Was this my higher self? Was this God speaking to me? So be aware of that. You want to also pay attention to those random thoughts when you start meditating. They are going to come full force. Your laundry list, the bills you have to pay, what so-and-so said to you, the job promotion that got passed up. Why did that happen? Your mind is going to be busy. Okay, so the active goal at that point in meditation is not to deny those thoughts. It's not to dismiss them. It's not to minimize them. Go ahead and receive them, acknowledge them, and then let them go, like the flow. Just let them in and let them out. Eventually, when your ego goes, oh, she's not trying to make me shut up. She's not trying to ignore me. She's not trying to make me feel like I'm not doing my job. When your ego finally gets that, it'll stop the chatter. So let it run its course. It's okay. It needs its share of the glory too. Deidre, so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. So the last thing that I want to add into how to meditate correctly would be to practice when you're relaxed, but in an awake state. I don't really encourage meditation right before you're going to bed. Prayer's good for that. But meditation, you want to get to a state where you're actively present in being present. And when you get to a relaxed state, when you're doing prayer meditation, you can easily fall asleep. And if you fall asleep, that's fine. You obviously needed it. But when you're meditating, you want to be able to receive the insight, feel that connection, feel your vibration rise to a frequency where you're communing with the spiritual realm to get that insight and guidance. And you have to stay awake to do that. Now, when you're meditating, you're in a light sleep, a light trance, but you're not completely asleep. And so it's better to do it in the morning or during the day when more than likely you're not going to fall asleep. Whereas prayer, I always know one way to get me to go to sleep is to say my prayers at night, and I never end up finishing them because I fall asleep. But God knows what's in my heart, and I work it out through my dream state, and so I'm good with that. But that's another or one of the last things that you can include in meditation. So I want to recap really quick. And if any of you have any questions, drop them in the comment box and I will answer them. But so prayer and meditation are closely related. They do have a difference in that the goal of prayer is to typically ask for help or give thanks. The goal of meditation is to get your body to a state of awareness and mindfulness where you can receive information for that for which you prayed for typically, or that you need help for. You do involve gratitude and thanks as well, but the goals are different there. They have a lot of things that are similar in nature, and they are used both in spiritual and religious practices. And it's kind of like if you thought of two circles and the two circles come together and you see that little, it's like a little triangle in my third eye. Those are the similarities that meditation and prayer have, that are sacred, that are powerful, that are the go-to of what makes us feel connected. But there are also a lot of differences between the two as it relates to the goal, active versus being receptive, and things in those natures. And so there are many things that you can do to have a successful prayer connection of what you need help with, and a successful meditative connection so that you can receive the answers and the insights of what you needed help with. But mainly it's about quieting yourself, creating a sacred space, having patience and unconditional love, and really taking the time to connect with your higher self and your God self. So Trina says, what if you can't stand it to be quiet? I swear I can hear the electricity running through my home when it is quiet. And let me see if I can hit this here. And it bugs me. Absolutely. Okay, so when you're meditating, if you've turned everything off, you will hear your breath, the air conditioner, the cricket, something hitting against the outside of your house, if it's windy. If you're at a state where that distracts you and it bugs you, there are a couple of things that you can do. You can play some light music, meditative music, but very, very light to kind of buffer the sounds. You can do an active meditation, which you're actually listening to somebody walk you through something. So your mind is focused on what that person is saying, not the AC coming on. You can focus on something you are grateful for, like counting your blessings. And so it's giving your mind something to do, which typically won't allow it to pay attention to all the outside noises. So those are some things that you can kind of buffer those sounds. An advanced state is to actually listen to those sounds and just listen to them. I never knew the AC came on 5 times in 3 minutes. I never knew a cricket made that noise. I always thought it made this noise. So that's an active meditation of listening to all the sounds around you. Instead of being annoyed by them, you're actually communing with them, connecting, paying attention, becoming one. Okay, so it's not wrong that it bugs you. It's normal. It just is going to take you a little bit more to be okay with it versus judging it or criticizing it, if that helps you. So I want to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that each and every one of you actively employs a practice of prayer and or meditation, or a combination of the two, especially if you're wanting to learn how to connect with the spiritual realm, with your loved ones, your angels, your higher self. It's definitely the best way to get started in doing that. Now is one of the best times, the holiday season, especially around Halloween, where the veil is thinner, where you can make that connection. There's a lot of mind drama that you just have to educate yourself on and work through, but practice is where you start. So I hope that this video was helpful. Drop a comment in the box below. Check out my website, innerhealing.biz, and if you're interested in connecting with a loved one or your guides or your higher self around this time, I have a great Halloween special going on right now. It's 50% off an individual reading or 50% off my Words Left Unspoken program, Healing the Heart After Loss. Truly transformational program that helps you move through the grieving process, as well as helps you learn how to connect with your loved ones across the veil. So I incorporate grief counseling and mediumship into this program, and it's half off until October 31st. So I hope you have a beautiful day, and thank you as always for showing up. I appreciate you.